You know, Dave, D&D campaign building isn't just for the Dungeon Master.
That's so true, Ted. Dungeon Masters, there is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be using your players as a campaign as well as adventure idea building resource.
So let's get into D&D campaign ideas, 3 ways D&D players build the game.
Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchy Dave, and as usual, I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Hey, maybe it's your first time visiting Ted's basement. Well, it's a place where we like to discuss news, views, and homebrews for 5th edition and Dungeons & Dragons, and sometimes we talk about other role-playing games.
So if you don't want to miss a single video, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and to tune to that notification bell.
All right, Ted. D&D campaign ideas, 3 ways for your players to help build your campaign.
So, a lot of times, you see DMs that really just like, it's my story. I gotta write what's here. And while they might incorporate, players' goals and things into what's going on, it's not integral to the plot. It's not using what they've already provided to capitalize and jump on.
Yeah, I don't even think it's always a matter of being intentional. Sometimes I feel like the DM just feels like it's their job. They have to put the pieces all together. They have to create this immersive experience and, tell this story with their players and lay it all out for them. And they have to build all the pieces. And then the players just come in and move the pieces around and play with them. But this video is really about saying, no, your players can actually help you build those pieces and we can all move them around together.
Absolutely. Number 1 is going to be incorporating NPCs, from players' backstories.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a great tip and a great way to do things. And that is, as your players give you backstories and they mention people in it, as a GM, make some notes and think about how they might pop up throughout the campaign. Whether it's just social interactions or you need to have the big bad show up and, kidnap someone, they make great candidates for this.
I mean, look at the MCU. In Thor's backstory, he's got a brother who turns out to be the big bad. Loki.
Yeah, sort of.
What do you mean, sort of? It's absolutely.
Their relationship is far more complex than that. But yeah, absolutely. Even bigger would be when his sister shows up and really wreaks havoc. But you're right. And, you can look at great examples from modern media and kind of incorporate those ideas into your games. But ultimately, the idea is mine the players' backstories for these details so you can incorporate them into the game that you're running in the campaign.
And they can be, all over the spectrum, from plot devices. They could be captured. They could be bad guys. They could be, people showing up that need money and it winds up becoming a drain on the party's resources. Of course, if they're willing, or they could be, totally trying to, scam them, steal from them, and it's a drain on their resources without their knowledge.
Yeah, that's a great point. Plot devices, quest givers, and plot twists are 3 great ways to use those NPCs. Now, another area we can talk about is from the backstory and also character creation itself, and that is what backgrounds did the players actually choose?
Absolutely. If your player winds up taking the soldier background in the area that they're in, what is that going to mean? Well, are they, a town militia and they don't really go out and fight a war? Or are you coming from a major city and war has happened and therefore this character has seen much? If multiple characters are taking the same background, well, now you've got characters that are linked together and there's a reason for that.
Also, look for opportunities to introduce fun encounters that aren't necessarily combat encounters, right? You say you have 1 or more characters with the soldier background. They're in the tavern, and there's a table off to the side, and they're creating a lot of ruckus, and maybe they even start picking on and kind of bullying one of the players at the table that doesn't have the soldier background. And then they realize that one of their comrades is also at that table. table, which then changes the encounter completely, where you may have almost been ready for a bar fight, and now it's a different kind of thing. And it's like, why is the unit back together? Well, everyone but maybe this one character or one or two characters, but the unit is assembled. What are they doing? Oh, they're not actually in the army anymore. They're mercenaries. They could actually turn out to be the bad guys. There's plenty of plots that I've seen in movies where this very thing happens, so you could totally run with that.
If you go guild artisan, is there a rival? Do you have someone who, is trying to show you up, or someone trying to sabotage your stuff? Easy ways that you can get in on that one. Charlatan, who did they put a bad deal on? Who is coming after them? Folk hero, if you've done something great, what was it? Do you have someone who's trying to follow in your footsteps that you're going to have to wind up rescuing? Or is it tag along because it's like, well, I want to see what you do because you're my hero, and this becomes a plot device of this person is always getting into danger because they want to be like their hero.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the folk hero, was there a threat you overcame? Charlatan, did you assume an identity of someone who you assumed was dead or believed to be dead, but now they're not? There's tons of fun things you can do with the background choices and those NPCs from the backstory. So let's move down our list to the next one.
So here we're going to get into lore with player agency.
All right, so this is anytime the players create something probably in their backstory or something they want to do with their character, but it doesn't really exist in your world already. This is the point where we're going to say, hey, why not say yes and allow them to have it? I remember another YouTuber was doing kind of like a live session 0 or recapping a session 0. It was a couple of years ago, and one of the players wanted to play, I think they were playing like a wild elf, and they wanted to be from a group of wild elves where either they're elite cavalry, road tigers, or something like that. Well, that's kind of cool. Why not? Maybe you didn't plan it, and maybe you didn't have that in your world. Well, maybe you can put more wild elves, a different society of them, and that's a thing now.
Right. In my game that I'm currently running, we did a session 0, and with 7 veteran players, you guys came up with a massive story about what happened prior to session 1. And while I had stuff working as to what I was going to do with the plot, you gave me, well, here's a villain that you're going to use. And whether that's the big bad of the game, or whether that's, an intermediary, you guys don't know, but you're looking for this mage that you created. You created this whole great story. And for me, that's a major catalyst to be able to I don't have to come up with names. I don't have to come up with places. It was all provided from your collective stories.
Yeah, in that instance, we were starting off at 4th level, so it's like, what did you do to get to 4th level? We wanted to be together to make it easier on Ted, the GM. We came up with probably an organization. We came up with a magic academy. We came up with a villain, and we also came up with a handful of NPCs that all got dropped into Ted's game. Now, Ted could have been a dungeon master that said, no, you can't do this. This is my 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons campaign, not yours. I do the world building in D&D because I'm the dungeon master. But you didn't do that. You said, oh, okay, there's room for all these things and they're interesting. Now, that being said, even though we created some things and came up with ideas, I am 100% in the camp of the DM is now has full rights to do whatever he wants with that stuff and twist it and corrupt it in any way he wants. And our part as players with the agency he gave us is done. Now it's his idea to interpret it. Just because you create something and you think it's a certain way and your character perceives it that way doesn't mean it actually is, because plot twists happen.
Plot twists happen. And I was going to say the same thing. But you know what else is an amazing twist?
What would that be, Ted?
That's going to be the Kickstarter from Nord Games, the
Ultimate Beastry of the Accursed.
That's going to be it.
Yeah, these guys are kicking butt over there on Kickstarter. They're sponsoring this video, but we love Nord Games. We've worked with them in the past. We were actually introduced to them through an Ultimate Beastry that they done Revenge of the Horde. Now it's all about undead and cursed creatures. They're slamming those stretch goals down. They've got 4 of them already out of the way, closing in on the 5th one. And the stretch goals that they have are really cool. Like so far, player options for undead, whether you want to maybe play as one or you're hunting undead. I don't know exactly what that means, but it's going to be cool. You're going to get more art. We're going to get monster lairs. We're going to get dread beasts. And the one that I think Ted's really excited about is probably the one that's coming up.
Well, the Dreaded Accursed is amazing. We got some cool undead. I'm really excited for, the options what they have with will-o-wisps. I'm a huge fan of lycanthropes, so the were critters that are in there, very excited for. But the next stretch goal, it's probably going to be unlocked by the time you guys, wind up seeing this video. But mongrel folk, I'm really excited about that one too.
Ted has loved mongrel folk in all the previous editions. I have too. They're just so cool and creepy. They're so ugly. How can you not love them? It's like when you go to the zoo to see the warthog. The thing is hideous, but so lovable anyway. So that is going to be unlocked, and they've got more planned. I can't wait to see what they come up with. They're doing really great. They've got another 16 days left when we're filming this video here. You should really check out this Kickstarter. There is a link in the description below. Go take a look.
All right. So do we want to move on to our third and final?
I think that would be the place to go.
All right. So what do we have for number 3?
As a dungeon master, you should experiment with, if you haven't, inviting your players to help paint the scene.
Here is a great thing that, I've learned from other role-playing games and haven't done it, prior to 5th edition. And that's the players walk into a room, a city, anywhere, and instead of you describing it, you throw it out to the table. Some GMs might award inspiration for allowing player to take agency in their world, but here you get the ability to step back as a GM and allow a player or players to put in a room exactly what it is they're looking for. Are they looking for a combat scene? Well, if you give it to them to make that, they can say what it is they're looking to fight, what it is they're looking to talk to, and they get to build exactly what they want.
It can also be far less innocuous as well. You could, like you said, your players have gone to a city. Well, one of the players happens to be from that city. They're like, we want to go to a tavern. And this is a great place for you to go to that player and say, hey, what is your character's favorite tavern in this city? What is it called? And who do they like to hang out with there? Because they're from the city, they would know. Now, obviously, this is a gray area where you have to kind of know your players a little bit. It's also a place where you have to be willing to step in. If you put them in a position that makes them uncomfortable, maybe they're not ready to do things on the fly and improv these scenes. And that's okay. Throw something out there, respond to what they give you, or just take it right back and keep going with it. I've talked about this before. I've had it come up in, my games with a player and this same exact scenario. Where do you want to go? And they just weren't expecting me to let them decide what the name of it was. I hadn't warned them or anything. So whenever you can, also warn your players that these things will come up, and and they can tell you whether they want to participate at that level or not. And that player was just like, adjective animal. And so I was like, all right, and I just ran with it. Blue hyena, because there's a giant hyena that has been stuffed and dyed blue in the corner of this tavern. It's run by so and so, blah blah blah. Don't make a big deal of it. Don't try and prompt your player to give you more than they wanted to give you. Just take it and run with it, whether they give you stuff or not. Maybe next time they'll be more interested in participating, and because you just caught them off guard or something.
And that's a key point. Knowing your players is really important. I know my current group, as I said, it's full of veterans. Most of them, if I toss something like that out there, they will jump on it and go to town with it. But doing that kind of thing where you give them the freedom, it fills out details. Oh, well, the blue hyena is a cool place. Well, hey, now that there's this stuffed hyena there, that becomes a plot element. What happens if another tavern tries to steal it? What happens if, it's actually, alive and it becomes a plot device in another way? You can go in a lot of different directions. I
am so disappointed, Ted, that I never thought to steal the blue hyena. Almost like a frat house where they steal the mascot from another school. Such a lost opportunity.
That's exactly, where my brain went, when you're talking about essentially this mascot. There's a stuffed hyena off in the corner. I'm like, all right, well, what would I do with that if I was the GM? This was a player character's favorite haunt well, then anything that happens to that place, then, becomes a quest. Hey, look, oh my God, Niles is here. Somebody took the hyena. What do I do? I will track it down. I will find the hyena.
Well, one of the things too is whenever you do this and you give your players agency and let them create in your world, when you do something like Ted said and have the hyena get kidnapped, right? Then all of a sudden, like, your players are vested because they created that piece. They're like, oh, you're not taking my hyena, right? Because they have ownership of it by creating it. And this creates instant plot hooks into your games. And I think also it's a lot of fun for the players to be able to take ownership on the world that's being built around them. As the GM, you're still going to get to build most of the stuff anyway. It's not a big deal. Dungeon masters aren't losing anything by letting their players take some agency and create some little bits and bobs in their world. If anything, it's going to enrich it and make it a better experience for everyone at the table.
Besides being enriched, the players are going to feel more immersed in the game because they've had a hand in building it.
Yes. So what do you guys think? Tell us things that you've created in your games that the Dungeon Master has let you throw in there, or Dungeon Masters tell us some creative things your players have come up with. Before we head on out of here, I want to invite you to join the Nerdarchy Adventuring Party over on Patreon. Hey, Ted, you want to tell them what they can find over there?
Every month, we're creating products for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons that for players and DMs alike.
But Ted, that's not all. Not only that, all of our patrons automatically get entered into our monthly giveaways.
While that's true, Dave, that's still not everything. We're also doing weekly hangouts with our patrons.
So with that, until next time, stay nerdy.